Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Cardsphere.com as well as Moxfield.com. Alright, I have been asked to play with Atraxa again, and honestly, I'm excited about it. This card absolutely slaps. 7/7 Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelinker that looks at 10 cards, and you get a card of each creature type. Not each creature type, of each type. And today we are going to be playing a deck courtesy of Hyperlink, who wanted to see this in a blue-black Reanimator shell. And the first thing that I want you to notice here is that Griselbrand is not in this deck list, which is kind of huge. The deck list that I'm presenting here is pretty close to Matthew Vook, aka Ozymandias's deck list, although I've also incorporated some elements of one of Peter Vanderham's deck list. And in talking about deck building here, the version that I am going to run today is going for some consistency with both Ponder and Baleful Strix as additional card draw, and it is sacrificing main deck Thoughtseize and maybe a main deck Griselbrand in order to do this. And I think I like this better. Something that I learned from piloting like the natural order version that I recently played is that having other things that your opponent has to dedicate resources to so that you're not just all in on one aspect of the deck is really valuable. And Baleful Strix helping to chump block, White Plume Adventurer, Dragon Rage Channeler, Murktide Regent, or whatever, I think is a pretty big deal. And if I can fairly reanimate things like that and Grief, that's a pretty good plan B. Now, why do we have 4 Archon of Cruelty and 4 Atraxa, but 0 Griselbrand? The reason is the sideboard show and tell. Generally speaking, Griselbrand is going to be the worst of those cards to put in with a show and tell, because it requires your life total as a resource as well, whereas these two don't. And it's possible that there still should be one of Griselbrand in here because it's going to be one of your best like turn 1 Entomb targets, but time will tell whether or not that's correct. One of the things that Peter Vanderham really wanted in his deck list was Thoughtseize. Matthew Vook's sideboard had 2 Hydroblasts, which I've sort of replaced with the more general Thoughtseize, because sometimes you just want to be able to force your combo through, and I think that's valuable. Most of the rest of the stuff here in the sideboard is pretty stock for legacy purposes, although once again we will notice that our good friend Snuffout is creeping into more and more legacy decks. With that being said, I think it's time to go ahead and hop into a league here. If you're new and you like what you see, please consider subscribing, and if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Beyond that, if you have any thoughts about deck building after watching the league, I would love to hear those, as some things like Thoughtseize versus Ponder, whether or not the Griselbrand should be in the deck list are pretty hot on Twitter right now as a point of debate. Anyway, let's battle. Okay, I'm not sure whether or not I'm supposed to keep this. I haven't played Blue-Black Reanimator in a long time. I don't have show and tells in game 1, so the creatures in hand are a little bit less valuable. Brainstorm's great, but I probably don't want to play it on turn 1. I think I pitched this hand looking for something a little bit better while I'm still on 7 cards. I'd be willing to keep something of approximately that quality on fewer cards. Not the biggest fan of what I'm looking at here. I'm missing both a way to get something into the graveyard and a way to reanimate it. I have 1 Ponder here. I'm willing to go deeper. This is the best hand so far. I think this game is just play Grief, reanimate Grief, take 2 cards from my opponent's hand, and then try to play more fairly as this game goes on. I think that's my plan. I think that's the easiest way to recover from a fast mulligan. Potentially playing against Blue-Red Delver, which, to the surprise of no one, has been everywhere recently. No shuffle there. I don't need to expose myself to Wasteland in this turn cycle. Let's Grief, pitch a Reanimate. hopefully take our opponent's only interactive card. Nice, didn't necessarily expose myself to Wasteland here. I will take the thing that kills my card. Do the whole evoke thing. I'll fetch. Grab a basic swamp. Miss those. Cast Reanimate, targeting Grief. And I think I take the Brainstorm. The EI is actually pretty awkward right now. I think this just gives me a couple of hits with Grief in the early turn without my opponent's stuff messing with me at all. Alright, they found something else to do with this turn cycle. No shuffle there. Atraxa is not what I am looking for in hand right now. Oh man, my opponent found Lightning Bolt. That's lame. No. Alright. I'll pass the turn here. So I'm running on fumes at this point, and I was trying to like take that Brainstorm to prevent my opponent from like having initial early game plays so that I could maybe get like 4 hits in with a Grief or something like that. And now my opponent is in EI bullshit land. So they are going to Mystic Sanctuary, EI back, cast EI, fuel that, yada 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 yada. Not the best for me. I'm going to play out this land in hopes of hardcasting a Grief next turn, but I probably just get wastelanded. Braid main deck is interesting, by the way. That's not super common right now. Oh no, it's Murktide Regent. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah. My double mulligan here is leaving me pretty far behind. I don't think I'm going to outclass what my opponent is doing. This, in theory, can hit enough things to give me big, dumb, fat creature. Let's put back Grief and land here. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. So then I will fetch my basic. Cast Baleful Strix. I can't play it around days here. I just have to cast this. Alright. There's some good news. And now next turn I am hoping to cast Careful Study into one of these 2 cards. A Lightning Bolt is a disaster here. My opponent's Wasteland is also very good. Yep. That's fine. I mean, it's really not fine. To be clear, it very much isn't. Alright. Do I want to block that? Not really. I'm currently holding Murktide Regent back, which matters a lot. I will take the 1, go to 12. Another Strix. It's probably significantly safer to just play this card rather than go for Careful Study and be in really bad shape if I miss. This also insulates me versus Lightning Bolt a little bit better. Regardless, I am just going to get buried by EI over the course of the next couple of turns, because it's just EI, Mystic Sanctuary, Daze, EI, ad nauseam. Ugh. And at this point, my opponent probably just attacks with the Murktide Regent. Like, they can just let it go. They still have a 2-turn clock. They can just deal the highest amount of possible damage to me in this turn cycle. Alright, there's the Bolt. Bolt kills that, and I'm dead on board. I will concede. That's a shame. We really wanted to get game 1. I don't really know what my sideboard approach is here. The Black Reanimator hasn't really been a deck in many, many years. And I haven't played this with a lot of the updated cards. It could be that I'm not just, like, not supposed to play counter spells to fight against my opponent's counter spells because they are just going to be better at that fight. And I should just get better at putting the things into play. Have a higher density, assuming they fail most of the time, and go from there. I don't really want to be on the whole Grief Reanimate thing versus this deck. I think I'm just going to play a couple of removal spells. Plague Engineer's not crazy. Know that I want this card. Miser's Force of Will. Miser's Plague Engineer. Miser's Thoughtseize. Play 1 Thoughtseize. Oh, no, let's... I don't know about that last card. Yeah, this is totally fine. I think what I'm going to do, go ahead and pass my turn, and I'm going to cast an Entomb in my opponent's upkeep before this is dazable. This will play around Force of Negation. I'm going to get a different fatty than the one that's in my hand so that Surgical Extraction doesn't hit both of these. We'll see what my opponent has to say about this. Cantrips are fine. My current plan is to just cast Baleful Strix on my turn. Right, they did not end up shuffling. Jam? I don't know, I kind of just want to play Baleful Strix. But I'm gonna make my opponent address this problem now. I don't need to play a Baleful Strix immediately. That's fine. And if I do if my opponent does daze, it sets them further back in terms of land drops, which matters a lot for deploying like Murktide Region or casting EI or whatever. Yeah. Let's just do that immediately. And try to hit another land drop by playing Strix. Alright, it is another daze. That's fine. I'm not really in the situation to play around that right now. Like, I need another land drop to do my next thing, and this will just be dazable anyway. 100% in the mood for a careful study here. Open an Archon of Cruelty. And the second one is legitimately tough. I think it's supposed to be Baleful Strix, though. Like, as much as I would love to just cast another Baleful Strix, I don't think I want to go that direction here. And if I bin Archon, I think there's just too much of a chance that I don't get to do my thing. I mean, let's go. I am 100% sure my opponent can answer this, but it is worth attempting. My goal is to attempt to run my opponent out of stuff. Yep. So any reanimation spell is very live as of right now. We're hoping that my opponent doesn't have a threat, because it's when they have a threat backed up by other stuff that it's a problem. I don't think I'm going to play this land drop. Maybe that's not true. I do have Mystic Sanctuary to be thinking about, and I can Mystic Sanctuary back a Show and Tell. But basic Swamp here is working against that, unfortunately. Sure. I don't like my situation. I don't have good sources of card advantage, and my opponent does. Now at this point, my opponent's future land drops beyond this turn are just going to start turning into copies of EI, which is brutal. I'm not going to fetch until I have to because of opposing Wasteland taking me off of mana of hard casting some of my more expensive spells. Flips to the third daze. And despite the fact that I haven't been attacked very many times, I am at a low life total because I have cast a Snuff Out. Hey, exactly what I was talking about. Sure. Life's bad. I have a ton of great top decks here, though. Not really one of them. It kind of does a thing. Actually, shit. I was supposed to do something while my opponent's Wasteland was tapped. See how heads up of a player they are. I was supposed to do all of my fetching with these lands. I put Show and Tell on top immediately. And it matters. Oh, I'm just dead. It doesn't matter. Yep. Cool. Anyway, Delver is a very enjoyable deck to play against. Today's video is sponsored by Cardsphere.com. Cardsphere is a service that allows you to buy, sell, and most importantly, trade your Magic cards with other people and game stores from around the world. As you can see here, they are doing a lot of business. They only take a very small fee, 3%, and if you decide you want cash instead of cards, you can also get paid out via PayPal for a small cut. P.S. They also have articles, so please consider checking them out. Alright, I've kept my opening hand for round 2. Oh, okay. So we're just, sorry, this is like my 6th game versus Blue-Red Delver today, presumably. Oh, okay, not Blue-Red Delver. Not with both baubles. C? Or just be ambiguous with Delta Pass. Probably C. Yeah, opponent's keeping the baubles in play, which probably means there's some, like, Thoughtcast type element here that cares about number of artifacts. I don't know what's next, but I probably Force of Will it. That just finds an Echo of Aeons, which I am not on board with. I will just go ahead and Force of Will that. And then I will end of turn Entomb Archon here, probably. Alright, so opponent is going to go ahead and crack some baubles now. You have seen my Ponder. I'm interested in casting that, looking for Reanimate. That is an Animate Dead that guarantees that I can do the thing next turn. Next turn's pretty good. Alright. I will go ahead and cast a Careful Study, though. Attempting to look for a Grief or Force of Will to just make things a little bit safer here. I'll pitch Entomb and Atraxa. My opponent gets a couple draws off their baubles. Urza Saga is fine. Opal is fine. Anything but like Echo of Eons is fine, honestly. Alright, fantastic. Go ahead and go land drop, Animate Dead. I'm going to take an Archon in the face of Urza Saga here. And it works. Allows my opponent to discard whatever their remaining card is. Hull Breacher. I'm fine casting a Careful Study right now before my opponent has another chance to draw another Hull Breacher. Or Narset if that's a thing that I have to worry about. Go ahead and do this. Yeah, you can look at a random card in my hand. I'll discard an Archon. And I'd rather have Baleful Strix and land drop than Grief. My opponent's either going to play out their cards or discard them to Archon a lot of the time anyway. Alright, Urza Saga ticks up. Again, the construct tokens are not threatening right now. I've got a pretty fast clock. Don't want more Archon. I mean, I would love another Archon in play, but I don't want to be drawing another one of those. Alright. Mono Baleful Strix control. It's at 8. With Strix. A Force of Will is very good. That probably means that I don't play the second Baleful Strix. It's more important to be able to beat a top deck here. I've got Pithing Needle to worry about, so I'm going to go ahead and preemptively fetch here. Don't think I care about Mystic Sanctuary on any of these things. Might just take it on Ponder. Yeah, I might just take it on Ponder. That's something that can now allow me to play out Baleful Strix because I just put a blue card on top of my deck to just guarantee that I have something else to pitch to Force of Will. Alright, sounds great. We've got Force of Will available. I do not care about the constructs. I don't care about whatever my opponent can do with Urza Saga, I don't think. Like, I'm still just fine if they do something like Spellbomb this Archon out of play. I'll still just have double Strix in play that beats construct tokens. My opponent will presumably take one more construct token here. They're also probably not going to have a Spellbomb in game 1, right? More of a post-sideboard thing, I think. Could be wrong, though. Haywire might. That's reasonable. That takes out my Animate Dead. Yes, and I will start trading Baleful Strix for construct tokens. This is fine. Well, let's go ahead and make my opponent do their thing. So gain your life. Exile that enchantment. Not attacking with this, I'll hold it back. I have so many good hits off Ponder, I'm okay casting this. Yeah, Reanimate is definitely one of them. Careful Study on... Put Careful Study second here. Grief. Careful Study. Reanimate. Shuffle. No. Okay, land drop. We'll reanimate the Archon again, because that just takes out this construct token. Alright, fantastic. And now I have Force of Will up for literally whatever card my opponent plays this turn. And then Archon attacks next turn and is lethal. GG. Note that Archon and Atraxa are probably of equal power level there. One of them clears the board, although clearing the board doesn't really matter. And then one of them has more looks at like blue cards. Well, I already know 100% of the time I'm hitting the blue card. I don't know what graveyard hate my opponent is going to be playing. I probably don't need Strix. Like, answering Urza Saga tokens is cool and all, but like my opponent at the end of the day is an opposing combo deck. I think I want the Show and Tells as plan B. And these 4 cards that I have off to the right here are pretty reasonable as well. Surgical Extraction for Echo of Eons doesn't work as often as you might think it would. I don't mind these cards. I just don't really know what I'm supposed to cut. everything kind of seems important. I'm going to whack the submit button since I can't figure out what to cut. I don't necessarily think my boarding's correct here. This is an okay hand that doesn't interact with my opponent, which maybe means that it's not an okay hand. I think accordingly I'm going to pitch this one, despite the fact that it's like full of very reasonable and good cards. I think I'd rather have like a Force of Will, a Grief, or something like that when I'm on the draw. Well, as what I asked for, I'm going to keep this pitching the Animate Dead, I believe, because of the might thing that I saw previously. Our opponent is just leading on Urza Saga and some graveyard hate. It is unfortunate for me based on how this hand looks. I'm going to start with Grief, pitching Entomb. See what's going on over there. My opponent's hand doesn't exactly do anything. I can take the Surgical and try to force my combo through twice. I think I'm just going to take the gamble so that they can't kill me and attempt to drag this game on for a while. I can do sad reanimates on a Grief and make my opponent blow resources trying to stop that. Like, my opponent can't even make Urza Saga tokens as of right now. Another Spell Bomb, that's fine. Okay, sure. Show and Tell's great. Like, very much exactly what I'm looking for, in fact. Let's cast this. What do I want to show and tell in? Atraxa or Archon, knowing that they are going to get bounced? Probably Atraxa. Or I can just keep both large creatures in my hand and not worry about Grief. Pitch Grief, Reanimate. And then if I find a show and tell off Atraxa, I just go off again. Yes, I like that better. I didn't find the land that I was looking for, though. So my opponent's going to float some mana. And we'll see what they want to get here. Yeah, my guess is that this was going to be more stable mana, because they're, like, absolutely hurting on the mana front here. They can make a sorcery speed token if they want. I'm going to opt not to do that. Missed my land drop. I need to cast this. If my opponent has Hull Breacher, they have Hull Breacher. Yep, I mean, that's fine. I have to try it to get the land drop here. Oh, I want Archon lowest here. Take the other two cards. Don't get to draw that because of Hull Breacher. But I'm actually doing pretty well here, all things considered. I suppose I should have put the Underground Sea on top rather than the Scalding Tarn. I lost a life for no reason and exposed myself to Pithing Needle randomly on that fetch land. Yeah, minor misplay on my end. The might is fine. Take some damage here. Now I fetch. Grab a C. Cast Show and Tell. A good chance I just died a token aggro here. But I basically have to put in the Atraxa, because, like, the Spell Bomb is going to bounce what I do. I just have to find another Show and Tell to go again. I did. I'm going to get Sorcery, Land, Creature, the Instant, Enchantment. This will be my turn for now. My opponent's going to Spell Bomb this out of play. Surgical Extraction on Show and Tell is really awkward. I'm going to tell my opponent I just got. This is a bug. I made a little YouTube short about it. You are supposed to be able to see. Alright, so opponent's floating mana. Have a lot of mana if we end up in an Echo of Eons situation. Yep. So now I do technically have a blue card that I can pitch with Force of Will. This is a lot of damage, though. Puts me to 4. Drying Rage Channeler's in there as well. Sure. Surgical Extraction on Show and Tell now. Let my opponent surveil. Like whatever they see there. I have to Force of Will that. Pitching Atraxa. Sure. I think I'm just barely dead. I'll go ahead and Show and Tell to put in this Archon of Cruelty. Opponent will sacrifice their might. Yep. And now I block this and am exactly dead. Remember, like, 3 turns ago when I talked about grabbing Underground Sea versus that fetch land? That is now relevant. And that like potentially lost me this game. The little things matter, folks. A lot of games are won or lost on singular points of damage, and this game is one of them. I am deterministically dead there. We get to go to a game 3 and try again. My opponent's graveyard hate is largely artifact based. When I'm on the play, taking it out of their hand with Thoughtseize is pretty appealing. Finding the second black card for Grief is a little tough. Grief is a nice plan B, but I think I like this here. I could go down and Animate Dead because like the Might is an additional out to that. I think I'm just gonna submit this. It is unexciting but fine. I will have a decent number of looks to turn to an Atraxa. And at this point, I'm not fully confident, but I get the feeling that my opponent is not playing Leylines. Like, once the game starts, I obviously know that, but based on what I have seen thus far. Oh, nice. Bin both creatures? I think bin both creatures. So I have turn 2 Animate Dead with Force of Will backup, unless I have to use the Force of Will on one of my opponent's turn 1 plays. Will not be attacking that. Alright, what are we doing? I think I let that resolve. My opponent goes all in on LED. I just Force of Will. Emery is fine. That gets answered with Archon. Alright, cool. Ooh, Reanimate. I think I like Reanimate better than Animate Dead here because it doesn't expose it to Might, which is sitting right here. Do this. Reanimate on Archon. And it worked. There goes Emery. Oh, Thoughtseize, take my opponent's last card. Don't mind if I do. Now we're doing stuff. Okay, it's an Ancient Tomb. That's fine, though. So, opponent's not cracking their bauble to keep Metalcraft. Urza Saga is fine for them, but not necessarily what they're looking for. What is that? Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a corpse counter on it. You take the initiative. If that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. What the fuck? I have never seen this card in my life. What a oddly specific, wild piece of hate. I'll be Force of Willing that. My opponent does not get to do that thing. They can try again at a future point. This does have escape. Wild. I love it. It's good tech. I will attack for 6, which is effectively 9. Put my opponent to 7. Animate Dead my Atraxa, so that sort of nonsense can't happen again. Alright, I will take instant, sorcery, creature, enchantment, 4 cards, make a land drop, call it a turn. We have lethal, and a Force of Will backing it up. My opponent also doesn't have enough mana to functionally do anything here. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is a deck hosting website, and I'm really a big fan of using these for my EDH decks in particular, because you can use these little blue bubbles to keep track of which cards you do and don't have when you're starting to build your decks. And if you have one, but not that exact art that you have up, it'll be in a gray bubble instead. And this has just been so convenient as I kind of sort through my collection and figure out what I need to purchase for my decks. Okay, I have a reasonable hand for this round. It's not necessarily fast, but with 2 cantrips to dig for preferably an Entomb, I think we're off to a reasonable start. My opponent has gone down to 5 cards, so we may be playing an Unfair Mirror of some nature. I'm just going to grab a basic Past Ponder. Those are not what I'm looking for. I found an Archon, so now I can just as easily find a discard effect or a Careful Study to kind of do my thing. So many baubles. Targeting themselves to see what they should do with their fetch land. They get their card. Found an Atraxa. Not the happiest with my current hand situation. I'm not ready for Mystic Sanctuary. I do not need a second Atraxa. Yeah, but despite the fact that I have 6 cards in hand, I can do nothing right now. And we've just got ambiguous blue lands over there. So it may take us a couple turns to figure out what exactly my opponent's doing. I ended up with the basic swamp in hand. Guess that's fine. I guess I'm working towards Mystic Sanctuary. Rough. Land pass. 6 cards in hand. 0 available plays. See what my opponent's doing. Are we just playing against Delver again and it was just a really bad Delver start? Looks like it. Yeah. There's a wasteland. I don't know that my opponent needs to fire off that wasteland. Like, they can, but it's clear that I'm not using mana. Oh my god, Dak. That's it's pretty frustrating. Sure. Yeah, you can wasteland me. Thank you, Dak. Very cool. Very cool. Now, my opponent's hand is probably just, like, full of counterspells, so I'm not expecting things to go smoothly once I can start actually playing spells. Do I just fucking time walk myself twice to discard a creature card at this point so that I can use Reanimate? That's probably wrong. I'm just going to put a Ponder on top of my deck and try to reasonably string something together. Brazen Borrower? Brazen Borrower. I just don't think I can time walk myself twice versus Delver, especially when I think they just have, 5-ish disruption spells in their deck. Yeah, sure. Of note here, this is round 3, and not once have I said to myself, man, I wish I had Griselbrand. I'm just throwing that out there. The other thing about, like, time walking myself to cast Reanimate is that, like, my life total is a resource, and 6 damage is pretty brutal. We'll fetch, and grab Mystic Sanctuary with this last one. Brainstorm? Like, the hand's so bad, maybe I just brainstorm. It's real awkward if I miss, but let's see where this goes. Oh, it was allowed to resolve. That's fantastic. I'll put back 2 creatures here. Put back, like, Archon, Atraxa. I would like to attempt Entomb to shuffle, I think. Maybe I'm supposed to keep Misty. This Misty doesn't actually fetch anything, though, so I don't want to, air quotes, waste a fetch land like that. Alright, that got Force of Will pitching a Murktide Regent. Now I will attempt Baleful Strix. Oh, that's getting a response. Mystic Sanctuary EI. Yay. Opponent is dazing. I 100% accept that. And I get dazed again. Sure. I'm probably going to have to do the sad play of Reanimate my Baleful Strix. We'll see, though. Note that my opponent has used Daze to rebuy Mystic Sanctuary, so an EI is going to happen yet again. I'm at 9. The Ponder in exile. And there it is. Alright, there's that Atraxa. So here's Sad Reanimate on Baleful Strix. Has worked. Yep. This is not currently a mana source. I'm just going to hold that in hand. My Kingdom for a careful study. Oh boy, it's Mystic Sanctuary to put EI on top of the library. What a healthy play pattern. It's fine. I'm not mad. You're mad. Seriously, though, the Ragavan ban was like a year and a month ago, I think. And like Blue Red Delver is still like very obviously either the best or the second best deck in the format. Like, I'm very bored of this play pattern. Bobble's fine. Bolt is annoying. Sure. I will say, like, by all rights, on a more reasonable draw, I crush this game after my opponent double mulligans. But, like, all I drew was land and creatures basically this entire game. Alright, an actual card. Let's go. Can I afford to greed this? Like, can I greed this by playing Baleful Strix into Animate Dead? The Animate Dead then becomes Dazable, so the answer is probably no. Let's go the other direction for this. Put the Strix second so that I can draw it. I'm going to put this into play so that my opponent doesn't know that my stuff is Dazable. Right. There's actually no creature in my graveyard despite the fact that it's turn 9. That's right. Forgot about that. That's a misplay on my end. Now I know I don't want the card that's under this. I'll go to 3. Take a fresh card here. Another Animate Dead. I've produced 2 blockers so that I'm not dead to like an unholy heat. But I'm dead to so many things, literally or effectively. So this should have been a reanimate and I should be at 1. Oh, they just found a lightning bolt. Sure. Alright. Not my tightest played game in that turn cycle there. But what a disaster. I didn't count them, but I believe that I saw almost all of my 17 lands. So I want the show and tells, because these creatures are getting stuck in my hand. I think I went down on a lot of this stuff before. I think I did these, keeping 1 Force of Will as the thing that I did. Okay. This is a very awkward hand. Some portion of the time I just get wastelanded in the game because of it. I don't think this is a mulligan, though, because like I have show and tell plus creature, I have 2 land drops, I have 2 cantrips. Like, there is a lot to like about this hand, despite the fact that like there are some negative things. And I am going to fire off one of these end of turn to just kind of try to smooth out my next few turns. Fantastic. Love hitting all these extra land drops here. I'll put back the basic. Yeah, sure. My opponent knows that I have this delta, meaning that I should probably play this delta this turn. I'm fine casting a sorcery speed brainstorm. Well, I have a lot of the same portion of the deck, probably too much of the same portion of the deck. Go ahead and throw back a couple cards. Fine, preemptively fetching. If I'm already vulnerable to wasteland, I don't have to pivot into the basics immediately. All right. Only taking 1 this turn is great. I don't want to play a show and tell into a daze if I can avoid it. Opponent's fetching. Probably not an EI. Might be... Oh, fuck. Okay. That's a thing that I have to deal with. I just jam show and tell into daze because of like how bad I am going to be versus like my opponent untapping and having access to like brainstorm and pyroblasts. My 1-drops just naturally are going to be extremely unlikely to resolve, and letting my opponent just hold up pyroblast for the rest of the game is horrifying. I think my position just got bad enough that I am just going to jam Murktide Regent on top. There's the daze. I accept this fully. Delver does not flip because Murktide Regent is on top. And at this point, I imagine that my life is pretty bad. I can use a Mystic Sanctuary to put a show and tell on top of my library and attempt to try again in that capacity. But the next time I do it, my opponent's going to have Pyroblast up. Now this counterbalance makes my life real awkward. There's very likely a 1-drop on top right now because of Delver. So I'm not going to cast Entomb now. Oh, my opponent's fetching. So let's look and see what's on top with their Delver. Okay. It is not an instant or sorcery. Land is pretty likely. Dragon Rage Channeler, Murktide Regent are possible. I think I'm going to fire this off here and see if we get a little lucky. Okay, for surgical extraction based reasons, I'm going to choose Atraxa to graveyard here. EI is fine. Alright, sure. Dragon Rage Channeler is fine. Though I should think about doing my whole Mystic Sanctuary thing right there, or if my opponent has surgical extraction so they don't get to surveil an extra 1 card, is potentially a misplay. Mystic Sanctuary, put show and tell on top. Yes, I will use that ability. Alright. Start on the show and tell. See if we can force this through. A daze. My opponent is probably doing that just to surveil more than anything else. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and just fetch here and pay with a basic island. I will pay for that. All right, Wasteland on top. Force of Negation. Opponent junks the Wasteland. How many dazes have been used? 1, 2. 2 dazes have been used. Counterbalance is random. Likely means 1. I don't think my situation gets better by waiting, though. Like, I can play around an additional copy of Daze by waiting. Dragon Rage Channeler on top. I'm just taking so much damage every turn that I don't take actions, though. We'll see if I can resolve Animate Dead next turn. Taking 4. I'm at 10. Atraxa will gain 6. Okay. Opponent's Brainstorms are so good right now. Alright. Attempt to do the thing. Cast Animate Dead. Bobble on top. Holy shit, we're actually doing it. Hell yeah. So, I will get 1. Can I just get Show and Tell and put in Archon as well? Like 1, 2, 3, 4. No, well, no creature and artifact here. Probably fine. Click done. I already played a land drop. I've already played a land drop. Attempt Show and Tell. Put in Archon. Opponent gets an extra land drop there. That's fine. At this point, I imagine we've got this one. I have so much life, like, effectively here. Like, you can put an EI on top, but I think either one of these cards in play basically beats my opponent. And both, especially when backed by Force of Will, just becomes very difficult to beat. Yeah, those can all go to graveyard here. And I think I just Force of Will this. Cast that, pitching Strix. Brainstorms the top card, and we win that one. I'm very surprised to win that one, because that was not feeling good for me. I think I keep my sideboarding as is. I'm, like, very much not comfortable with how this deck is supposed to sideboard. Okay, I think I will keep this hand. I will be starting on a basic island, which is a little bit awkward here. But hopefully it ends up working out okay. Fantastic. That means that I can get basic island and basic swamp this game without really messing myself up. I think I'm going to start on the Careful Study since I have 2 of them now. This is a little weird. I'll junk both of those creatures. I now have Show and Tell Atraxa as a thing that I want to do, so I want to Animate Dead on Archon of Cruelty whenever I choose to do that. May not be a thing that I actually want to do immediately. Ooh, my opponent has Tropical Island in their deck. They are Rug. That's new. Could be a Minsk and Boo or some other sideboard card. Awkward that I want to fetch basic Swamp with this. I don't think I just want to jam. Go ahead and just ponder. Force of Will's nice. Extra land drops are nice. I accept. No shuffle. I will pretty happily cast Animate Dead next turn. Fine with letting this resolve. I've got make land drop, cast Animate Dead, targeting Archon. Nice, my opponent doesn't have Pyroblast up this turn. That's great for me. Then Force of Will, pitch Careful Study as my backup plan. If that doesn't work, Force of Will, or sorry, Show and Tell around Daze next turn. Here we go. Force of Will pitching Murktide Regent. Because of Brainstorm, I'm not going to let them surveil immediately. Force pitching Careful Study. Okay, there's the Brainstorm that I was worried about. We're okay against Daze. Can't beat another Force of Will effect. Yep. Alright, so let's clear the stack here. My opponent just junked a Wasteland. They didn't want it. I know my top card is a land. I want that land to be able to Show and Tell for Atraxa. I think I don't cast anything here. Hate that my Show and Tell will just be Pyroblastable. Oh, JK. That's the 4th type. Alright, they're going to get their land drop off of EI. And it's just a question of how much interaction is left in the tank. Pyroblast will counter Show and Tell. think that is an it is what it is situation. I'm just jamming. Damn it. Opponent does not have very many counter spells left in their deck. At least not hard ones. I'm not going to play Ponder this turn. Don't want to play that into a daze. Yep. Yep. So my plan is end of turn, Mystic Sanctuary, or to put Show and Tell back on top of my library. Consider doing that in response to EI, but that informs my opponent's decisions. I don't necessarily want to give them that hint. Surgical Extraction is surgical targeting. Surgical is targeting Archon of Cruelty. I can just let that resolve. I guess surgical is a good reason to not have done this already, because this would have shuffled my library. Alright. Opponent has 3 cards remaining. They do not have Pyroblast up. There is 1 Force of Will remaining in their deck. I play around a daze. That's a misplay. Supposed to wait and do that in response to my fetch. Now I get to do this. Put Show and Tell back on top. My Show and Tell doesn't get to be played around days anymore, though, which sucks. I guess it's not a misplay if they do have yet another counterspell. I think I'm just going for it, and if it doesn't work, I will Ponder or an Animate Dead next turn. Oh, sure. Cool. Cool. I'm not technically dead, but I don't bounce back from that. I would have to do 12 points of damage with the Baleful Strix that are in my deck. All of my large creatures are gone. I guess I can also reanimate my opponent's Delvers or whatever. I'll take 3. I'm at 6. Alright, I can reanimate a Delver. I would like to find my own Baleful Strix, though. I cannot Entomb and Reanimate Baleful Strix, so I'm going to go ahead and shuffle these. Okay. Let's kill that. Reanimate that. Be at 1. Die to Lightning Bolt. Opponent's on a 4-turn clock. Okay, that's just a land drop. The opponent's card in hand is potentially Force of Will. Alright, you won't even let me not attack. Die to Brazen Borrower, Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning. Most creatures. Holy shit, we might get a break at the tail end of this game. Oh, buddy. Back for 3. I kind of think my opponent's last card is Force of Will, so like I'm not expecting this Strix to resolve. But it sure would be cool if it did. Oh, it's a Pyroblast instead. Yeah, sure. A counter spell was incredibly likely. Alright. Back for 3. Opponent is at 3. I need to fade for a turn. You know, I win, and it's a win for the scoreboard, but this sure doesn't feel like a win in my heart. That was not super enjoyable. Alright, this is round 4. I believe I'm 2-1. I'll be keeping this hand. Honestly, I think I'm just going to careful study here. And I'm going to play this game on basics. Alright, let's get rid of Atraxa and this other careful study. Call it a turn. This telegraphs what I'm on, but plays around days, which is a very stupid thing to say. But I am up to like 6 or more matches versus Blue-Red Delver in some capacity today, so don't feel that bad saying it. Alright, we are playing against lands. Arachas is a thing that I have to worry about. Ojuka Bog is a thing that I have to worry about. I'll just be going for it here. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but make them have it. Animate Dead on Atraxa. Okay. They do have the Bog. They Levy. I'm pretty close to just being able to try again next turn anyway. I have something that can buy me a turn versus a Merit Lodge. Okay. Sure. I can a little bit play around Wasteland. I will be pondering for a reanimation spell specifically here. I want 4 looks at that. That is not it, so we will shuffle. Then I'll just play Baleful Strix with the rest of my turn. Not really what I want to be doing, but I don't have like Lotus Petals to try and go fast here. My opponent just wastelands me immediately. I don't think there's any need to do that before their draw step. That is just objectively a mistake. Okay, Reanimate is fantastic. Go ahead and Brainstorm first, and probably won't attack. I'll put back Archon and Strix, probably. Fetch, grab a new Underground Sea. Entomb. Archon is not legendary for the purposes of Caracas, so I'm going to pick Archon here. And reanimate my Archon. Opponent discards the Yavimaya that I know about. I don't think I attack here. I want to have this back to don't block a Merit Lodge if my opponent's last card is a crop rotation. They don't want to chump block with this if I don't have to. Alright, cool. Baited a Merit Lodge for now. Reanimate is not doing anything for me right now. Archon attacking alone here is a 2-turn clock. Okay, this is all fine. My opponent can make that Merit Lodge, and then I will force them to sacrifice it. Yep. That's fine. Also fine. So this is always going to be a 2-turn clock anyway. I think I reanimate it, though, rather than animate dead because of both Seiju, which is currently in my opponent's graveyard. Alright. We'll go ahead and make a land drop. Play a Strix. Good stuff. This is probably good enough to get game 1 now. There's a cycle. Tranquil Thicket. Yep, good enough. Talking out loud here, I wonder if my opponent, well, like, my opponent making that mid-combat was a misplay. If they make it end of turn, and then top deck a crop rotation, or anything else that gets Baleful Strix out of the way, they just win on the spot. But the Archon is definitely a problem if they don't. Discard effects are not going to be that great versus my opponent a lot of the time. I want these show and tells. Force of Negation is kind of interesting, for Life from the Loam in particular, and also for some of the Mana Bond Winding Way nonsense that can happen. Baleful Strix is really slow. I'm going to go down one of those. This has lands and spells, but I don't feel like this hand is actually good at all. I feel like this hand just Brainstorm locks itself or gets its first land wastelanded and just kind of flounders. Same. Like, this land is just going to get wastelanded and I'm not going to play Magic. I'm going to go ahead and go to 5 here. I'm not happy with this hand. On 5, I will keep it. I don't get Force of Will here. Probably bin Animate Dead here. Keep both my cards that are redraws and keep something that lets me have something to discard to Careful Study if that were to happen. Very awkwardly here, I am going to opt to get a Snow-Covered Island rather than an Underground Sea because of how bad it is if I just get wastelanded. I will discard Archon here and Baleful Strix, I think. And next turn I can ponder looking for a Force of Will, then cast Reanimate. Black fetch land would also be pretty yuck. Sure. Sometimes they draw the bog. Yeah, black land is nice there. Just from keeping me from getting wastelanded. I think I will be happy enough picking up a Show and Tell here. I can't easily take both Show and Tell and Ponder. I think I'm good with this. Do this, pass the turn. I will fetch a basic swamp and start working towards a decent number of cards, honestly. Sure, Maze of Ith is annoying here. I am not very good at attacking lands. Do I want to draw that Ponder? It's okay. I think I'm going to skip it, though. Pick up my next basic, because spiking an Atraxa here would be really good. I will Brainstorm, put back some of these lands. Okay, I can Entomb Reanimate this turn. That's fine. We'll pitch 1 Reanimate and 1 land. Yes. Go ahead and fetch. Grab an Underground Sea. Entomb. Atraxa better sets me up to go off again next turn. But Archon's much better against the Maze of Ith that I know about. Pick Archon and reanimate it. Rough. I think realistically that means that I've lost this game. With a known Maze of Ith and Atraxa being non-legendary. Or sorry, Atraxa being legendary, so I can't produce multiple copies of her. It's really hard for me to win this game. Like, it's Baleful Strix beats, and I think I have 3 copies of those. Boarded out Grief, right? Yeah, I boarded out Grief. That's rough. Okay. Yeah, my opponent can now copy stage. I think I should have conceded with the Surgical Extraction on the stack. Alright. I will pick up the Atraxa. And show and tell it in next turn. My opponent is going for a second forest. I'm a little surprised they didn't just, like, copy one of my lands to have more different names for Field of the Dead. I am just going to let that happen. My opponent already has Exploration, so a lot of the damage on that front is already done. And the cards that I currently have are kind of important to my potential success. So I'll put in an Atraxa, but, like, really, it doesn't do a lot here. I will take Creature, Sorcery, Land, Instant. Drop a land drop, call it a turn. Careful Study is going to be something that'll pitch to Force of Will at some point. Gotta say no to that. That just absolutely cannot resolve. Or I'm just facing down the Merit Lodge that immediately beats me. Fuck. They're good, 2 last cards to have. I also have good cards. Maybe Bury Brainstorm here. Redraw that next turn. Past this. Again, though, with Maze of Ith in play, this is not doing what I need it to do. Winding Way will obliterate me. 1, 2, 3, 4 different names. 5, 6, 7 different names. So how this works is all these cards see each other enter, right? So Field of the Dead will trigger off of all of them. 18 points of damage with Baleful Strix. Let's go. Draw the Brainstorm that I know about. I just chill with that for now. I will do my due diligence and attack with Atraxa. Oh no, it didn't work. Oh no. Okay, there is just a cycle. Sure, that card doesn't matter. And the good news is my opponent's creatures can't attack. The bad news is everything's awful on my side of the battlefield. Reanimate and animate dead. Opponent doesn't have creatures, so those don't have real text. Guess I'll put back one of both of those. Crash in for 1. Yeah. This is some sad magic right here. Alright, it's copying Maze of Ith. Alright, for enjoyment and entertainment value, I'm just gonna throw it in at this point. It's not happening. I now know that my opponent is playing Surgical in addition to Bojuka Bog, which isn't the greatest for me. I just can't interact with lands in any capacity. Such is life. Doesn't have a way to get a creature into the graveyard. I'm gonna bin this. I would like to go fast here. Also doesn't have a way to get a creature into the graveyard, but I'm not willing to fish that hard. Like, this hand has 3 cantrips. It'll work itself out. I'm gonna pitch the second Archon here. The one thing that I don't really like about this hand is that fetching the island here is, like, surprisingly awkward. Strix into Strix is something that I can do in the next couple of turns, but I would like to do something more unfair than that. I really wanted black fetch land, but I do not get it. Let's try to fix this hand. Oh, this is pretty solid. Probably going to put back a Brainstorm and 1 land here. Play Polluted Delta, go for end of turn, Entomb for Atraxa. Yeah, I can't interact with lands. So now this has to be Entomb for a second Archon, which makes Surgical very awkward for me. So yeah, I will be dropping Show and Tell, and we'll see if it works. And by that, I mean, I expect the show and tell to resolve. It's just a question of, like, will my Archon of Cruelty actually beat my opponent? Because it very much is not guaranteed to. Okay. Opponent gets to nuke my graveyard there. I get their Endurance. Found an Atraxa for if I find another show and tell. Opponent has discarded Life from the Loam. They don't have a green source showing yet. Maze of Ith is really annoying. Force of Will's good for me. I get a Lightning Bolt worth of damage a turn, which is, like, very much not fast enough. But it's something, right? Like, it's a Delver. Let's attempt to find another show and tell. Baleful Strix increases my damage to 4 per turn cycle. I think I accept that, but fetch away the remaining cards before I do anything else here. Underground Sea. Play this. I have Force of Will for anything that's truly scary. I have a Brainstorm that can help smooth things out. I'm not going for Life from the Loam here, or more other Life from the Loam. Alright, my opponent concedes. I think that's a bit of an early concession. Like, that feels like a tilt concession to me. Because, like, they are taking 4 damage a turn. Their Maze of Ith goes a long way towards keeping them alive. Like, I don't think they were out of it yet. Alright, final round. We're playing against Maxtortion, who I know has been messing around with Blue-Red Delver, featuring Mercurial Spelldancer. First hand was unplayable. Second hand's not great. I really need another land here. I think I'm just going to kind of accept this. Need this, need this, need this, probably need this. One of these 2 cards goes. I'm going to pitch Archon. I may or may not be able to use Grief to punch a hole. Oh, I am wrong. Blue, black. Alright, good stuff. No covered island. And careful study now, I think. Pitch Atraxa and Strix. Then I believe I do go ahead and Grief. Pitching Entomb now, so that I don't just accidentally die. Nice. So we can take the Illusionist so I don't immediately die. Daze over there is a huge fucking problem. Step through, also brutal. Opponent's hand was very good here. I would like to draw Reanimate. That would be real cool. Nope. Seems kind of like I'm screwed. I guess I cast this Ponder. Okay, Grief saves me. Grief saves me. So now, cast Grief, pitching Archon, and then I'm okay. Whew. Big step through. I know my opponent's 2 remaining cards. The Reanimate that's on top of my library is very good. I will use that to reanimate Atraxa. Yep, that's all fine. I can reanimate Atraxa while playing around Daze. Swamp. Reanimate Atraxa. Alright, excellent. Oh, we're gonna get a lot of cards here. So I get Enchantment, Creature, Artifact, Instant, Sorcery, Land, Geese. Play this. I guess I play Strix for a redraw. Getting Island earlier cost me a second reanimation spell this turn. You can daze this if you want. I'm 100% fine with setting you back the land. Alright, cool. My biggest priority here is finding Force of Will. Okay, that's fine. That's also fine. That's not Force of Will. It is worth 8 damage, though. That's not nothing. I'd probably just start with Reanimate on Grief. Let's do that. Alright. Take the days that I knew about previously. Now I'll go ahead and Careful Study. Discard 1, 2. Cast a Ponder. All that stuff is kind of whatever. Shuffle, pick up a new land. I'll deploy that next turn. This is fine. I just need to dodge this turn. And I believe that ponder means that I have dodged. My opponent won't have the blue mana to do anything else here. Yep. So end of turn, I'll go ahead and fetch. Grab another Underground Sea. Go ahead and just Entomb yet another Archon down there. My opponent can actually make an Urza Saga token. I suppose that is relevant. Force of Will is very good. But I can just make 2 Archons right now and kill my opponent. So my opponent being dead is acceptable to me. Yep, there we go. Good stuff. This deck scares the hell out of me. It's so resilient. So I believe the stock graveyard hate for this deck is 2 copies of Surgical Extraction. I'm not super interested in Baleful Strix in this matchup. Interested in punching a hole in my opponent's plan, and this also protects my plan. I don't think I'm interested in show and tell here. I think I need more slots dedicated towards hate. I don't mind Snuff Out as free interaction or breaking up my opponent's combo turns. I can go further than this with interaction by playing Plague Engineer as well. Not super confident about my sideboarding with this deck. I've said this many times. I may not get to over sideboard. I also could play my own Surgicals, honestly. I should be playing even more defensively than I am. My hand's a keep. I don't like my second Entomb. I love my Snuff Out for an instant speed trick. Or if my opponent is able to, like, work towards comboing off quickly. Shuko is fine. Yeah. I will just Thoughtseize my opponent here. Brainstorm, 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 Force. Let's take the odd man out here. Alright. We kind of knew that was going to happen. There's a Petal. Is there actually another land drop? That's a Cephalid Illusionist. I will snuff it out as soon as I get priority. Goodbye. Alright, good. I don't have to table flip because Max's last card was a Daze. Guess I should play this. I'll ponder. Another Snuff Out. For Grief? I think I'm going to take the Snuff Out and not the Grief. No shuffle there. I'll do an end of turn Entomb. We're going to see some more copies of Brainstorm here. Sure, that's all fine. I'll clear the top of my library. I will Entomb. I will be putting Atraxa into Graveyard, because I don't want Surgical to get a effective 3-for-1. That would be pretty disgusting. Try to find a reanimation spell. Fail. Gross. Junk. 2 copies of Entomb. I'm fine going deeper here. Ugh. I don't have show and tells in the deck right now, right? That's where I ended on that? I don't. Alright. Archons are going in there. I have Snuff Out around Daze available as a line that I can take. Ooh. Okay, sure. Is an Illusionist again. I will say no. And these Snuff Outs are so good. If my opponent randomly gets a Narcomoeba. Ooh, they do! A 9-turn clock. Oh, actually less, because they've got Shuko. Force of Will is very bad here. I might die to this random Narcomoeba. Like, any reanimation spell is incredibly potent right now. But, like, I'm on... Well, actually, I guess that's not true, right? Reanimate is now off. Yeah, Reanimate is now off. That's a no. Don't cast this here. Well, that is Cephalid Illusionist being presented 3 turns in a row. Hey, Livy. Alright. Yep. At this point, my opponent wins. Talking you through the combo in case you're not familiar with it, what's going to happen is that a couple more Narcomoebas are going to enter play. My opponent repeatedly uses Shuko on Cephalid Illusionist to have them mill 3 cards at a time until their library is empty, and then they will dread return Athos's Oracle. I'm letting them do the combo here mostly so that it can see if they have anything spicy. It seems like the answer is no. Cabal Therapy's fine. Yep, I didn't have the fairy. It looks like my opponent is not playing Surgical Extraction. At least not for the game that they are on the play. Good to know. So, do I want to go deeper in terms of stopping them? Kind of. Go on the reanimate eventually plan. It's not like my opponent is playing a Cauldron package that I have to respect. So if I stop the primary combo, I'm good. Now that I know that, I think I'm going to try harder to kill my opponent over time. I go down a couple of reanimates. I'm playing snuff outs. My life total is a little more valuable. Go down like an animate dead. Maybe go down an Archon. Go down one careful study or something like that. I'm going to keep this hand. I think I just want to lead on Ponder, honestly. I just need to hit that land drop for next turn. Force of Will and Grief are great things. I'm looking for land here. I don't want to keep all this stuff on top and not hit land drops. That's one of the easiest ways for me to die, is just like miss land drops and then just eat it to a daze. For sure. Nomads are fine. And a pedal. That's fine. Okay, great. I hit a land. I believe here I would like to cast Thoughtseize first and do that around days. Alright, my opponent's going to hide their best thing on top. And I think I need to hold up Brainstorm so that I can look 3 deep for Force of Will. Actually, maybe that's not true. Well, I will take the Force of Will. Doesn't do anything right now. I'm actually going to... Well, no. This is fine. I can pass the turn here. I'm going to take 1 in combat. And then I'll Brainstorm in response to what I'm assuming is my opponent trying to combo off. Yep. Alright. Decent number of outs here. 4 Force of Will, 2 Snuff Out. Nice, there's a Force of Will. I need to set an upkeep stop here for my turn. Going to Entomb to shuffle away these creatures. 1, 2, and Force of Will here. I know the exact contents of my opponent's hand, so it's all good. In my upkeep, we'll go ahead and Tomb. Bring an Atraxa into the graveyard. Ponder. Go ahead and do that immediately. I can play around a second Cephalid Illusionist from that initial Brainstorm by keeping Snuff Out. I am going to do that. We'll go no shuffle here. Play this past the turn with the intention of shuffling. I am a-okay taking the damage from this Nomad's in core. I just can't afford to die to my opponent having had just an insane opening hand. Yep. Play the other one. Yep. Then I'll fetch to clear that. Ground C, number 3. There's an animate dead. Choose Atraxa. Nice. So I will choose instant, creature, enchantment, land. Drop this. I can play another animate dead. I don't have another target right now. This is fine. I'm pretty safe now. This is going to get to crash in for 6 and pad my life total. Alright, we have gotten the GG from my opponent. And we end this league at a 4-1. Alright, so we got a 4-1. I'm not sure how great I feel about this deck, though, if I'm just kind of being totally honest with you. I felt like we were fighting an uphill battle in so many of our rounds, and I feel like we were jumping over hurdles, and I was, like, hitting my ass on the hurdle, but still getting over anyway. I felt like I was at a massive disadvantage versus Delver. Like, I got there in some of those matchups, but I think what is going on here is powerful. I don't know that I like this exact build as it's submitted here. Between the time that I started recording this video and like my lunch break I took in between rounds, I know Peter Vanderham got to the semifinals of a Legacy Challenge with a slightly different build of this deck. So like this is something that I would expect to see around, like, my primary issues here are I feel like there's a lot of times where I just have too much crap in my hand that doesn't work together. Like, because I'm worrying about blue and black pitch cards. I'm worried about these creatures that I want to get into the graveyard. And a lot of times, especially if it's in a game one scenario, I'm not drawing to show and tell as an out to get them out of my hand and to do the thing. So I don't know that this is the most powerful Atraxa deck, but like Atraxa slaps, and like that card is very good. I would say that's one of the takeaway messages from today. Not once in 10 rounds of play between this deck and the previous one that I recorded with Atraxa did I like think to myself, man, I wish this was Griselbrand. This card not directly impacting your life total and requiring a payment of 7 life is so good on every turn that is not like the first turn of the game. Like, yeah, if you're playing like a turbo black-red reanimator deck list, Griselbrand's ability to draw 7 and just like potentially put a second creature into play immediately on turn 1 is a really big deal. But in a lot of scenarios where you are making it to the mid game, Atraxa drawing you those cards and giving you that selection matters so much. We did see Karaka being a major downside today, and this build's like 0 ability to mess with lands is maybe something that matters, but I don't know that you actually change anything in the deck to compensate for that because lands is not a popular player in the metagame right now. Whew. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. It helps out a lot, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. If you have sweet brews with Phyrexia, all will be 1 cards, please send them my way. Please do a donation deck list. I would love to make this happen. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya.